Hi, welcome to Did You Know the Heart of It, a short podcast from Gloria Deo Academy. In each episode, we unpack the heart behind our school's practices and philosophies so we can grow together in our shared mission to raise lifelong worshipers, lifelong learners, and lifelong servants. Whether you're driving, folding laundry, or catching a quiet moment, we're glad you're here. In today's episode, we're talking about finding joy in home days with Susan Gualtney. Hi, Susan. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This is always an interesting topic, right? Because home days can be very challenging and it looks different for every family depending on how many kids you have and the ages of your children. But I do think it's an important topic to discuss with moms to help them look for and find that joy in their home days with their kids. So my first question for you is, what has helped you shift your mindset from simply getting through the checklist of the lesson plans to truly enjoying the gift of teaching your children at home?
Oh, yes, I have many thoughts because my children are on the younger side and there have been challenges. But I think the biggest joy and the shift in my mindset has come from having this front row seat to watching your children learn to read.
Okay.
It has been the joy of my life.
Yes.
I was an educator for many years and didn't have my own children and was helping other children, but now to be able to sit and watch through raising my own children, it has brought me
to see that transformation.
So much joy.
Yes.
Yes, to see it at home where I know a lot of kids are doing it at school with their teachers, but to be able to have that time at home with my own children, that has definitely helped me shift through, because I'm definitely a checklist person. So at first it was always like, oh my gosh, we have so much to do. But just as I've watched my children progress, we've been at Gloria Deo since my daughter was pre-K 3 and my son started in kinder. So it's really those foundational years of learning to read. I think that's been definitely the best moment that I could ever.
I love the way you use the phrase, that front row seat,
Yes.
that we have the honor and privilege of being the primary educator in our children's lives.
Yes.
and discipling them and getting to have that privilege of seeing these transformations of learning to read.
Yes.
And I will tell you, as my kids, I have experienced something similar of just unexpected joy on home days when then you see your older kids reading to your younger kids and spontaneously, and I love that. And so you really do start to catch these glimpses of just joy and seeing their transformation.
That was another moment that I was going to share, was now that Jackson, my oldest, is old enough to really help my younger one, Madeline. Just as an example, we had like a spelling game going that they could both participate in, and they were both really working on their words, but they were working together, and Jackson was able to read Madeline her words, and he didn't even realize it, but he was practicing some old words.
Some built-in review.
It was just amazing that they could like sit there, and yes, I was involved, but I was just kind of had one of those moments where I sat back and just was in awe that this is working. This is working.
I think it's easy to take that for granted. So many times if you're a mom with multiple kids that you're trying to work through lesson plans of home days, and you think, well, I have 2 different grade levels I've got to get through, or 3 or 4, whatever it may be, but that there are also such good benefits and good things that come out of having multiple kids on home days, their siblings, that the family working together in a culture of learning in your home.
Yes, exactly. And kind of going back to just that front row seat of watching them learn to read, I learned to read in a very different way, and I was a struggling reader as a child, and this has been like a total redo for my education. And really, my children have been teaching me this new phonogram way, this new way of reading.
Oh, especially with like in GDA, the SW.
Yes, SW.
I'm pretty sure I only knew one rule, which is use I before E except ever C. And now I know
all these
many
rules.
more rules.
Yes.
And
so I feel like I've been the learner alongside them. So it's been a very unique opportunity for me as an educator too, by trade, to not be the one that knows all the information. But my little children sometimes know a little bit more than me, and I'll be like, hey, how did Miss Hartman teach us to say this rule? Oh, yeah, okay, that's how we say it.
This leads into my next question. When you were mentioning being a learner too, I get this picture of us getting to come alongside our children and wonder at whatever we're learning with them. And so how do you incorporate moments of delight, worship, or wonder into your home days, especially when the schedule is full?
I think one of the biggest principles I have to remember is to be flexible. Yes, we do have this tight schedule to get all these things done, especially
accountability. We're accountable for
exactly. We've got to check off our list. But being flexible, where when something comes up in a reading or something really catches our attention, allowing that flexibility, like we chose this way of educating and it's a very different way for a reason. So not to be totally stuck on that schedule. Just as an example, a neighbor gave us a hummingbird feeder this spring, and we had never had one. So we had fun investigating and figuring out how to fill it and made the recipe together and put it out. And then literally one of our home days, we couldn't leave the window because the hummingbirds were coming.
Yes.
And we were just glued in. But then in our off moments, we were drawing pictures of the hummingbird. We were naming the hummingbird, and we were getting books at the library about hummingbirds. And it just kind of went into this big, long, extra thing.
Where you were delighting.
We were delighting in it.
Yes.
And it wasn't on our GDA schedule, but you know what? We just had to divert for a little bit. And we eventually got back to our to-dos. But anyway, just putting that flexibility in there to just remember, like, there are going to be things that will take you on a little sidetrack. And that
it's okay to be open for those, kind of looking for those God opportunities.
Exactly.
And discipleship moments, whether it's conversations that came out of the schoolwork or a neighbor bringing a hummingbird feeder and saying, this is good too.
Yes.
Let's delight. Yes. Let's learn more about this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to home days with your kids, what have you learned about your child or yourself through the unique opportunities that home days provide?
Yeah. I feel like because my oldest has kind of driven this a little bit more, because he had the more rigorous schedule to start with than Madeline, being in pre-K when we started. Like I said, I love a good checklist. I like to have structure to my day. But what I noticed about Jackson is that he's all boy. He just needed small chunks. We have friends that they would sit down at the table, they would knock out their schoolwork in the morning, and they'd have their afternoon free.
But there was no joy in that for y'all. That wasn't the right fit for you guys.
It was not working for Jackson. And I could tell that it was losing that joy. And I just saw that he really benefited from small little chunks. So, we would start with math because that was often our maybe harder and bigger chunk. We'd kind of knock that out. And then take a break and do something that brought him joy and got him moving around. And then maybe the next subject would come along and we would have to take it onto the porch because we weren't quite done with being outside, but we needed to move on.
Yes.
So I feel like he's really taught me what he needs as a learner is some variety and some smaller chunking of things. And that's helped me kind of adapt and change a little bit to that structure a little bit more. But it's, still keep us on track to get through during the day, but just in a different method that works a little bit better for him. So
I love that answer that, when it comes to finding joy in home days, it's not just about learning how to do the schoolwork side of it, but it's also learning our kids and learning how our kids are going to relate to the schoolwork and feel confident and want to learn, be interested in the topic. And that requires us to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be willing to try things, and if they don't work, try something different.
Right.
We do know that on a home day, everyone has days where they don't feel like doing the work, whether that's the kids or the moms even.
Yeah.
But how do you balance the need for structure and accountability, which you mentioned taking breaks and going outside, but really approaching that with a spirit of peace and flexibility in your home?
Yeah. The first thing that popped in my head when I read that question, I just thought about my kids. I'm blessed. I have good sleepers. And we really, on our home days, we let them sleep in. We don't do alarms. Within reason. My kids aren't at the age where they're going to sleep in till 10 o'clock. But, it might be more like between 8 and 9. And we let them sleep in. and we don't do alarms, and we have a little bit of a slower start. We've also been able to incorporate some slower mornings where Jackson expressed an interest in learning how to make eggs. So, he might roll out of bed earlier than Madeline, and he comes in the kitchen, and, over the months of school, we kind of learned how to do our own eggs. We learned how to do cinnamon toast, and voila, all of a sudden they can make their own breakfast and take ownership in that. So that's kind of been, I guess, just kind of happened, but was built into our slower morning pace. And then, once we do start our school day, they know, like, okay, we had a slower morning. We've got to get some things done. And, our breaks might not be as long as they were on another day because we took a morning to really cook and enjoy our breakfast. And I think another mom, probably an Armour Bearer, shared with me, like, attacking some of those important deadlines, like, oh, we have a test tomorrow, so we've got to do our spelling words, we got to get ready for that test. And maybe there was an assignment that it's not due until later, so we can save that for later, but let's focus on the things that are most important for the next day. So that's
okay. So sometimes rearranging to prioritize what's coming up,
deadlines and stuff like that.
I think it works in a similar direction to prioritize, like if a kid is especially struggling, to try to then rearrange things to acknowledge, like, hey, I know you're having a hard day in this. Yes. Why don't we set this aside, take a break for a minute, and do, if it's writing, and we'll do a little bit of spelling, and we'll come back to writing after just had a break from it. Yeah, from a little bit. So definitely.
Yeah, often I'll let Jackson know, hey, what would you like to do right now? What subject would make you
give them a little empowerment, choosing
exactly
what's next on their school day? That helps as well too, but just that motivation factor.
Exactly.
You tell me, what are we going to do next?
Right.
Well, I love everything that we've talked about so far, is just from shifting our mindset, from getting through the checklist to enjoying the gift of teaching, getting a front row seat of watching them transform, and then us as moms being flexible and open to the God-given opportunities to lean in maybe a direction we didn't expect, to delight and come alongside them and wonder at what they're learning, and remaining flexible and adaptable ourselves to what each day may need as far as the rhythm, the schedule. You talked about these gentle mornings. That's what made me just a gentle morning to kind of start our home days with that spirit of peace, where they can enjoy a lovely breakfast. You, as a family, you have a little bit of worship time together. And I just think that paints a beautiful picture of what it can look like in one home, just for finding joy in your home days. What encouragement would you offer to a mom who is in a season of discouragement or overwhelm with the school at home rhythm?
I would say we've all been there, and I'm a community person. Reach out to community, find your Armour Bearer mom or a mom in your child's class, and hey, are you having trouble with this? And 9 times out of 10, I feel like they're going to say, oh, we've been dealing with the same thing.
Yes.
We've been struggling. So asking for help, don't keep it to yourself. Let that out, even though
it's okay to be open and to be vulnerable.
Yes, because I think if you ask any of us moms at GDA, we've all had those kind of days. And I feel like I have some moms that I'm readily available to text and say, today's been awful.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How do you get encouragement? And often, like, I'll get just the encouragement I need. And sometimes it's, hey, we've had a really hard day too.
Just knowing you're not
just knowing I'm not alone. Yes, that's super helpful. Another just tip that I have gained over the last couple years is if I start my day ahead of my kids, it's always a better day. When I sleep in and roll out at the time that they're rolling out, I'm often discombobulated and not organized.
Oh, absolutely. Same here. If I tell myself, like, oh, it's fine, I'll do their lesson plans for them in the morning. I'll get up early and I'll get out their lesson, and then I don't.
Yes.
And yes, everything
that can just derail your day.
Oh, it derails the whole.
Yeah. So I have just learned, like, even though those first 10 minutes out of bed are excruciating, if I can just get out of bed ahead of them, and have just some quiet time to myself and kind of my rhythm before we hit the ground running with them, even if it's a soft, slow morning, it's still, you're on. So if I can jump ahead of that, I always have a better home day. But I don't always choose that. So
yeah.
if I don't choose that, we're just going to roll with it. And I might be texting some other moms for encouragement along the way. But yeah, just finding your community and your person or people that you can reach out to when you are in that discouragement spot, I think can really help just change your mindset. So
I agree. The only thing I would add to that maybe is even just to not give up.
Yeah.
And in community, when you're talking to other moms, you might hear a different way of doing it. Because like when we started this episode, we talked about like everybody's home looks different.
So
It's
different.
home days as far as the number of kids,
Exactly.
the age of your kids, and not even just that, but the personalities and the learning styles of your children, what they're going to, their strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. And so while we're all doing home days and growing and learning as moms together, we're also, God also has something very specific in it for each of us, I think, to grow and learn too.
And just making those conversations happen with other moms, taking the time to say, what's working for you? It might not work for you and your family, but just hearing all these different ideas, it just kind of allowing those ideas to percolate and see, is that what we need to change?
Not give up.
But yeah, don't give up. Keep trying. Maybe something that didn't work a couple years ago, you try again, and all of a sudden it works because your kids are older. Anyway.
Yeah, you never know. And I see this past school year, I had 4 kids doing home days, and you would think it would have been the hardest year of home days, but it was actually probably my easiest year of home days. And I think that's just because over the years, I've continued to grow and change and in community with other moms at GDA and learning my kids better, learning how we have a healthier home days by just like you mentioned, me getting up early and being ready for the day, having our plan of what our rhythm is ready to go. It just makes a world of difference for keeping peace in our home so that we can actually find joy and delight and wonder in what we're learning together.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I would add one extra thing I learned this year is on that preparation piece, already thinking the day before about dinner and lunch. And
those
food meals.
We still have to feed people, right?
But we're so busy with our to-dos of, the home day.
Oh, we get I get lost in the schoolwork because I was an educator too, so I enjoy the teaching side. And then we have to remember at the last minute, oh yes, I'm still responsible for dinner.
Yeah, so asking for help, that's been a big struggle for me as I take on that superwoman. I can do it all, but I've learned I can't do it all, especially on those home days, and prepping my husband, hey, can you take dinner today? Or I'm going to put this in the crock pot.
Especially on the crunch day.
Yes, on that day where that in-between day. Yes, ours is a Tuesday. It's a hard day. So just doing some things that make life easier, knowing there's chicken nuggets, we're just throwing those in the oven today for lunch, or kids pack your lunch the day before and we'll have a picnic in the backyard.
Yes.
And then lunch is already prepped. Just those small little things that can make your home day just that much easier because things are already thought out and planned. So.
Yeah. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you, Susan, for being on here. I really appreciate it. And I love getting just a window into your home days.
Thank you. I've been honored to chat with you.
Well, we know that finding a school that partners in discipling your child without compromising your family's values can feel overwhelming. Gloria Deo Academy offers a collaborative, classical Christian education where your child can authentically live out their faith and thrive academically and spiritually. Find out more at www.gda.academy. Thanks for listening.